And finally, global climate talks on legally binding plastics treaty are underway in Paris. It is being described as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to tackle a worsening crisis amid fears of the aims of countries being too far apart ahead of a fast-approaching deadline. Campaigners have ramped up pressure on the government to push for an ambitious outcome from the United Nations negotiations on a global plastic treaty, with them beaming a message on the Houses of Parliament last week saying, now is the time to act. The United Nations Environment Programme said in April that humanity churns out more than 430 million tons of plastic a year. That's 2/3 of which are short-lived products that soon become waste, polluting the ocean and sometimes infiltrating the human food chain. And for more on this plastic waste threats, a marine resources advisor of the Global Water Partnership Nicaragua, Luis Moreno, joins me now from Central Africa. Good to have you join us. Now, this is the second round of talks in Paris. How well does this treaty address the plastic pollution problem? And what are the controversial areas?
Yeah, the most controversial areas are between those kind of factions. The one that's led by countries that really want to reduce and limit the use of plastic, no more manufacture, and the other group that are the emergent economy, like such India, Russia, and China, that they want to focus more on recycling. But so far, recycling is a tool to tackle the plastic crisis, but not the only solution.
Right. So during the very first round of talks, there were criticisms over the non-inclusion of NGOs and also not bringing to the table stakeholders in the plastic industry. In this second round of talks, do we now have the inclusion of these NGOs who were locked outside during talks?
You know, these kind of talks are always difficult. NGOs are an important part of the discussion because they are, as we say, in the terrain. They are working more directly with people that have been affected by the plastic crisis. Not to say that not only them, but also everybody is affected. But it is expected that this kind of talk has a lot of friction because we have seen that before. We saw that every time that we try to arise and discuss about environmental problem, we had this kind of discussion. NGOs are very important because they can come out with a practical solution, innovative solution on this matter.
And as the negotiations continue in Paris, environmental activists in Kenya are speaking up against increase in local production of plastic, and that's through its finance bill in 2023. Now, what does this mean to see countries like Kenya with progressive anti-plastic regulations now rescinding on its commitments?
You know, this is always a pity, and not to involve in internal political of Kenya, for instance. But we have the problem that we had to bring up an innovative solution. We must, and we have to control the plastic production. We had to limit it, and we had to be smart into innovate new way to using and to packing our food and not good and on the product that we use every day, because we can the use of one single time a plastic container is not affordable. It's not smart. We have different way to innovate that. We can use bamboo, and I know that in other countries they are now starting to use banana leaf as packing. So the humanity, we as a human being, we are smart. We had to come up with smart solution. We did when we have the problem with the ozone layer. We think at the beginning that this problem it cannot be solved, and now we see that the ozone layer in certain areas are really recovering. So we have to do that now.
And I use Kenya as an example because you would need the commitments from global leaders if this treaty is to become a reality, and then if we're going to see commitments to the areas that this treaty highlights. But I want to ask you how optimistic you are when you look at how how global leaders have treated the commitment to curbing carbon emissions. How optimistic are you that you will have the same commitment or a better commitment to eradicating plastic pollution?
You know, let's say, first of all, I want to clarify, I'm not in Central Africa, I'm in Central America.
America, yes, I got that clarification.
And how optimistic? Okay, my nature is an optimistic person. You know, it's normal and it's expectable that every time that we have this kind of discussion, we will have a group of countries that the economy depend on it. We have, for instance, the petrochemical. Now, the world is shifting to use green electricity. So the only source of income that they still have is the plastic production. But we have to change that. If we don't change that, this is going to affect everything about it. You said at the beginning that the plastic is now integrated into the food chain. Microplastic pellet now are found in your blood system and in my blood system. That thing affects everybody.
Absolutely.
People for petrochemical have to think about that. We have to reduce, and we will at the end of the day. We will do that.
Absolutely.
This
is a health issue. It is a climate issue. It is a life issue. It's a food security issue. It is a lot of issues, and it requires a lot of commitment. Thank you so much for talking to us. Luis Moreno, who is the Global Water Partnership, who is the Marine Resources Advisor of the Global Water Partnership in Nicaragua, and you joined us from Central America. Thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.